Alright, what's up fellas? You guys know what you're here for. This is going to be a relatively in-depth Craskoraptor guide. I know I've done creature guides before on the channel and shit, but yeah, this is mostly going to be for Pedogondia for the moment, because that's a game that I've been playing quite a bit. So I'm probably going to go down in order of the creature roster. So first we obviously have Craskoraptor. So getting straight into it, Craskoraptor is statistically very poor. It's obviously, not got the best stam, not got the best oxygen. Its speed's not great, especially for how weak it can be. No ability or anything, so your best bet for, surviving in general with Craskoraptor, for regardless of what you're doing with it, is getting into a group. Whether it's playing with a large group of Craskoraptors, or whether it's getting into a giant mix pack. It doesn't matter if you're just playing the game as a survival game, or if you're playing it, or if you're KOSing, or you're in combat, or in a war or anything. You are going to need group support, because there is not many creatures in this game that Craskoraptor can effectively hunt. You're mostly going to have to rely on AI and juvies and bugs and whatnot just to try get food a lot of the time. You can obviously take on juvies and stuff, and if you're confident, you can take on other starters like Slizathan, even though Slizathan can escape you somewhat easily. Kabu is kind of dicey. It's doable. It's kind of just depending on skill. Craskoraptor is arguably the worst starter, but by no means is it a horrible creature. It's just kind of low tier. So with Craskoraptor specifically, for PvP, it is pretty useless. But if you, for some reason, wanted to use it, its best use is to use it as a cleanup or a janitor. So what that essentially means is once all the bigger, stronger creatures have finished fighting and disengaged a little bit, if some of the enemy team is low on health, you can charge in and clean them up. Obviously, this is dangerous given your frailty. It is very easy to die, even with larger creatures being on low health. And the same applies for if you're just trying to survive and are fighting large creatures as a pack of Krasks. Even if you manage to get it low on health, even something like Kanu can like 5-shot you. So you need to be very careful, especially around larger creatures. It is doable to fight larger creatures with Krask. Not one-on-one, but as a group. Especially if you're in a mix pack. With a mix pack, you're probably not going to be the one that's on the front line dealing damage. You're literally just going to be useful for finishing people when they're low. In wars specifically, Krask is pretty useless other than what I've already said. With it, it's not even one of the faster creatures or better creatures you could use for it. Rat is considerably better for picking people off when they're low on health. Because, Rat can bleed things like Sega. Rat is also just really tanky. Rat also has a pretty good ability, and it's gas. Like, Rat is kind of just a bigger, better Crash character. And kind of bullies it out of any sort of a niche, so it's pretty sad. But if Krask is something you really want to make work, then that's how you're going to have to do it. You're going to have to do it picking off low health creatures or young creatures if it's in a survival, if you're playing the game like a survival game. In a war or in general combat, if you're in a group of only Krasks, then you're probably going to get steamrolled by some of the tanks or some of the big damage creatures like Suchalar and stuff. Suchalar and Kanu and Sega, or not really Sega, but Suchalar and Kanu are basically unkillable unless you are against a very, very bad player. Because they should be able to punish you and area deny you very easily. Even a group or even a singular rat can pose issues for a group of Craskoraptors. If you're in if you're in a war with not just a pack of Craskoraptors, then you probably shouldn't be using Crask. But if you are, you should probably just be trying to get chip damage on things without Urballs trying to avoid getting hit and focusing on the weaker creatures on the enemy team, if they have any, which obviously isn't a lot of the time. So all of what I've really said applies to Primordial Craskoraptor as well. With things that are in a 1v1 against something like Kabu or something, it's literally kind of just skill dependent. Other than when you're playing as Primordial, or if the Kabu is playing as Primordial Kabu. You can, like, especially Primordial Crask can kind of just bully Kabu. So, yeah. But regular Crask can't really do that. It doesn't have the damage. It doesn't have the health to tank Kabu. It doesn't have the defense either. So that's much more skill-based, whilst Primordial Craskoraptor can kind of just tank regular and Primordial Kabu. In my opinion, Kabu is probably the easiest food source for Craskoraptor, specifically regular ones, because obviously Primordial will just fly away. With Craskoraptor being so frail, you really don't have a ton of targets for food other than, as I said, AI, bugs and crabs and stuff, Kabu, and that's kind of it. And Juvies, obviously. As a group, you can obviously go for bigger stuff, but you still might have issues. But, yeah. Big counters for Crask are literally anything with a giant AoE, but specifically things that work super well against groups of Crasks are Rat, Suchalar, Kanu, obviously Mammoth and Dab and Grakon, mainly Christmas Grakon, so, but yeah, I just noticed my ski fucked up part, so, but yeah. Crask really isn't good. If I had to rate it, I'd probably, on a tier list, I'd probably put it on a D tier. It's really low tier, but it is usable. It's not like you're gonna absolutely have a terrible time playing on it or anything. It is kind of just a low tier throwaway creature. It is a starter after all, but as we'll come to see, that isn't really an excuse for some of the other creatures. But yeah, I hope this helps. Goodbye. Hope everyone enjoyed.